Hello, everyone. I'm truly excited to be here with you today. In this cyber talk, we'll look at how OSINT is a silent threat to organizations and individuals. We will also talk about some tools which will make gathering OSINT even easier than ever before. And lastly, we'll go over a couple of hypothetical scenarios where OSINT will be used against a couple of fictitious victims. This presentation is by no means an exhaustive exploration of OSINT. This talk is meant to be somewhat general given the time constraints. I'm going to present a few tools, and I'll touch on tactics and techniques. The topic of OSINT is rather large. It's my hope that you leave this presentation with a broad understanding of the risks and how you may be able to use this information to help yourself and others. For those learning ethical hacking or wanting to become penetration testers, also known as red teamers, this is an important skill to learn. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Joe Anderson. I'm an information security engineer for SIS, a converged technology company. I've been in the information security field for about 25 years, and over that period, I've worked within many types of organizations. I've earned several certifications from organizations such as EC Council and Microsoft. My journey into information security came after working for many years as an IT systems administrator and systems integrator. The skills and overall experience that I learned in those areas have helped me to be a more well-rounded information security professional. Okay, so what is OSINT? Well, this is data that reveals information about a target from publicly available sources. The OS in OSINT stands for open source, which means publicly available. While the INT or INT stands for intelligence. Another term you may be familiar with is called signals intelligence. This type of intelligence has a long history well before the advent of the internet. There are a few entities that utilize OSINT. Here, I want to give you some examples of how they might use it. Governments might use OSINT to better understand things like, the effects of a monetary policy. Think about how a government could use social media to gauge how its citizens are responding to a government action, or even lack of action from an unfolding crisis. Intelligence agencies use it. I think this is pretty obvious to everyone that they use OSINT. They're constantly monitoring for things like evolving threats in order to stop things like terrorist attacks. Military will use OSINT to better understand an adversary. Law enforcement has used OSINT to help solve crimes. Businesses will regularly use OSINT to learn more about marketing opportunities. They may use it to better understand their competition's possible strengths or weaknesses. And lastly, hackers, both ethical and unethical, love OSINT. Ethical hackers use it to help educate and show weaknesses which could be exploited. Unethical hackers use OSINT to attack a target for nefarious gain. This could be monetary, theft of some intellectual property, or to cause some type of disruption. I have to add, this is one of my favorite hacking topics. In my opinion, this is the most important stage in the ethical hacking process. Yeah, active hacking is fun, but this is just a little bit different. If you take the CEH or ECSA certification, you'll need to know the systematic approach that ethical hackers should take when performing hacking activities. In the first phase, also known as the reconnaissance phase, OSINT is the first activity that you will perform to learn as much as possible about your target. The more information you gather during this phase will determine how successful you will be in the later stages of the ethical hacking process. The key thing to remember is OSINT gathering should be as passive as possible, meaning that the target, if done correctly, should not know that they are the type of target for this type of reconnaissance. To add to that, we are mostly going to be using systems which are not directly tied to the target. So there would be a separation between the target and the provider of the information. Finally, this is a topic that tends to resonate with everyone, technical and non-technical. security-minded, or not as much. Everyone has used OSINT in some form or fashion to learn more about a product or service. Probably some of you, I'm willing to bet, have used it to learn more about an acquaintance. The point being, I think most people will be able to understand this topic with little expertise in information security. I want to take some time to explain why OSINT is dangerous. In the previous slide, I explained what OSINT is, and I touched a little on the why aspect of how it's dangerous. Here I want to go just a little bit deeper into the dangers surrounding OSINT. Like I alluded to earlier, even the most basic OSINT practitioner can be good enough to pull off some significant data gathering capabilities. You do not have to know a lot to be fairly effective. When done correctly, the potential victim won't be able to detect that someone's even gathering information on them. There are tons of free OSINT tools and sources of data. If specific information isn't available through free services, then pay sites might be useful. Some might use a pay site to even speed up their OSINT gathering. Businesses and individuals may not fully appreciate the implications of having all this data available. Individuals often share too much information about themselves on social media. Now, after all, we're all social beings, and we're made to make emotional connections with people through our shared experiences. Organizations share information trying to attract talent or business opportunities. They may also have misconfigurations which leave their data exposed. As social media has become popular, employers have started using OSINT to learn more about potential employees. Things like, were they truthful about their previous work experience, or they may even make specific judgment calls on their character. Existing employees may not be safe either. Employers have been terminated for views expressed on social media or blog posts because it might look bad for their brand or their reputation. Today, the tools used are extremely powerful. They are evolving and will get even better as time goes on. Throw in technology like artificial intelligence or AI, then the sky is truly the limit on how these tools might look in the near future. And lastly, there are no laws around gathering this type of data. These are some of the reasons why this is so dangerous. The individual sources of information may not be that bad. In most cases, having, this bit of information here, a little bit of that information there, it's only when you start combining the data from all of these different sources when the danger becomes real. The context that forms, either inferred or real, is how it can be used against the target. This brings me to one of my favorite quotes. It is applicable to so many things, but in this context, especially so. What we really learned from the Apollo fire was the failure of imagination. We couldn't imagine a simple test on the pad being that catastrophic. The message to the team is to remember how difficult our business is, the importance of staying focused, and using our imaginations to envision what can go wrong. Bear with me while I go on a brief but relevant tangent. I'm a huge fan of history, and I hope some of you know this event from history. Basically, for those that don't know, when the United States decided to put a man on the moon, a lot of new technology had to be invented. This technology had not existed prior, and a lot of testing had to be performed to prove that it worked. Unfortunately, a fire broke out during one of these tests, and 3 astronauts were killed. As a result of the accident, an investigation was conducted, and the administrator concluded that they lacked the imagination to fully understand how an accident like this could have occurred. When we're talking about OSINT, it is important to use our imaginations to try and understand how this information could be used in a nefarious way. When we have it in all of these different places, it may, seem like it's no big deal. Taken separately, it doesn't seem that bad. It's when it's pieced together when it can become a different story. Most people are honest and forthright, but we have to think like a hacker. We have to look at all the information together to get the full sense of the danger. This brings me to an important statement, which I must give to everyone participating in this talk. While OSINT activities are legal, it is important to understand that the topic and ideas discussed in this talk are for informational purposes only. I in no way endorse using anything discussed during this talk for nefarious purposes. Doxing, or doxing with 2 X's, both are correct spellings, is the practice of releasing collected data pertaining to individuals, businesses, government entities, etc., with malicious intent. This would be both unethical and illegal. In other words, use this information to help others understand the threat. If you're an ethical hacker, you must be a law-abiding professional. If you have a certification provided by EC Council, you must follow this as one of the guidelines. Obtaining permission from the target is essential to maintaining your accreditation. It is also important to remember that you must store information securely during an authorized investigation, meaning you've been given explicit permission. Lastly, destroying the data after an investigation is your responsibility. It is illegal to release what could be used to target someone. With that out of the way, let's talk tools. I tried to group these based upon my opinion on the relative complexity of the tool, the level of detail from the tool, or degree of knowledge one may need to use the tool. Everyone is different, so there could be some areas of overlap. Note that some of these may require an active account in order to use a service or to search their data. Within the basic tool group, we have search engines like Google, Bing, Baidu. There are others, but these are just a few. Anything the search engines can index is fully searchable. Some of these sites allow you to perform image searches, which might be helpful in finding information visually. Or you could perform a reverse image search, which might reveal everything that might reveal everywhere that a particular image is available online. Online maps like Google Maps, Bing Maps, OpenStreetMap. I would also include applications like Google Earth and Marble as well. These tools are invaluable for security professionals who test physical security against facilities. They can review the outside of a target, for example, and plan their way inside the building. Within the US, state and local government sites are useful. For example, municipal court records are publicly searchable from their respective websites. For other countries, similar websites and records are available. I've been able to find birth dates and addresses by searching municipal records. Social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok have a wealth of information. The popularity of genealogy has made it easy to learn about ancestry, so this information can be used to learn more about an individual. Things like family connections, maiden names, where someone may have lived at one point. One of them, FamilySearch.org, has a lot of data available for free. There are sites where you can pay money for background information on an individual. In the US, BeenVerified.com, BackgroundChecks.org, Intellius are a few of those. Job board websites can have interesting information relating to an organization, specifically detailed information around what technology they use. I've seen job postings where companies post specific technical details like software version numbers relating to systems that they use. Monster.com, Glassdoor.com, and ZipRecruiter are great sites to use to find this type of data. Corporate websites are an option as well. Sometimes companies will post information about employees, which could be useful, or give you an idea of different departments which could be targeted. There could be references to key partnerships that could be exploited. Supply chain attacks, where you hack into a supplier or partner of an organization to gain access to a target company. You know, simply put, the supplier is just the means to getting at the main target organization. Internet archives, like the Internet Archive Wayback Machine, is a great tool. This allows you to browse what a website looked like over a given period. It's always interesting to see how websites evolve over time. So if you ever get an opportunity, go look at Google and see how that website has evolved over the years. You might be surprised what you can find if you look through the history of a given website. Intermediate tools require a bit more know-how or understanding of other knowledge areas. These would include advanced search engine options like Google Dorks or Google Foo. Basically, this is just using Google search engine to find vulnerable websites, applications, or other sensitive information. Shodan is another great tool which can find vulnerable systems. Deep web searches. The deep web, not to be confused with the dark web, are sites and resources that are not indexed by traditional search engines. Most search engines adhere to a robots.txt exclusion protocol. Just to give you an example, for those of you who aren't aware, this is a text file that gets stored on a web server, and it tells a search indexer like Google what should not show up in search results. The information that is not indexed is considered deep web data. And there are search engines that will ignore the robots.txt and index it anyway. Some web administrators will think that they can put a robots.txt file on their site and then think that their data would be safe, but that's just not so. If I find a robots.txt file, during a penetration test, I'll review it, and it might lead me to some interesting information. Surfwax is a search engine that can be used for these type of deep web searches, and there are others too. IP lookup, whois, and DNS record search tools can reveal a lot of information about a website, including who might be administering the site, or reveal other systems that could potentially be targeted. You can basically map out a company's external exposure in this way. The Harvester is a good tool for this, as well as domaintools.com. Browser plugins can be installed, which can give you more detail around the underlying technology of a targeted website. Wapalizer is a popular Firefox extension for this. It will give you version numbers of the different components that make a site work. Support forums, I've found where employees have asked in detailed issues which they were having with specific technology the business uses, that they work for. This could be helpful for an attacker in the exploit phase of the hacking process. I've used hunter.io to find this type of information. Website analysis tools like httrack. This is a Windows tool where you can download a copy of a website for offline viewing. By making an exact copy, you could take your time and look through all the data on a given site. Note that this method is not as passive or quiet, meaning that it can show up on a log somewhere. I find that most companies aren't that diligent about watching for this type of activity, so be sure you could slow down the copy process enough to where it could become hidden amongst all the other traffic. There are purpose-built tools for Linux. An installation like Tracelabs' OSINT VM. It'd be a purpose-built Linux distro that you could use. This VM comes preloaded with a number of tools useful for OSINT investigations. Kali Linux has some OSINT tools preloaded as well. The last group require a lot more experience and knowledge. Source code review becomes important when you're starting to talk about web applications. Simply viewing the source code of a web page with the browser's view source it could be a useful tool. Breached data analysis, Troy Hunt's website, Have I Been Pwned, is a great resource to see if a particular username, in the form of an email address, by the way, has been compromised. There are credential lists containing all the various default usernames and passwords that systems might use. There are even data breach dumps which contain actual usernames and passwords. These are collections which have been collected from various hacked websites and different disclosures. These lists are usually pretty enormous. They're large. These are useful when attempting to gain access in the later stages of the hacking process. Things like credential stuffing or password spraying attacks will use these type of lists. The dark web, including sites that operate discreetly, meaning that they aren't directly accessible without using something like Tor. For those not familiar, Tor is a tool used for anonymous communications. Lots of illegal activity typically goes on in this space, and I don't usually recommend anyone connecting to these sites without adequate protections in place. The sites that exist on the dark web typically require some sort of digital currency in order to obtain sensitive information, but there are some free resources if you know where to look. There are purpose-built tools which may require you to install dependencies or compile code to get them to run. These could be very powerful, but require some upfront work to get them to work properly. One of the easier tools, Sublister, is a tool that can help you enumerate subdomains for a target website. It does more, but that's one of the main things that tool can do for you. Several tools are available which can help you pull targeted information from websites. This technique is referred to as data scraping and is an effective tool to collect OSINT. The Instant Data Scraper extension is a good tool for this, or you could script something that could do it. I'm not sure if you saw this, but there was a great EC Council talk a couple weeks ago which discussed using scripts to scrape OSINT data. The talk was titled Using Bash and Penetration Testing, and there's a lot of helpful suggestions in there. You should be able to go to the recent Cyber Talk section if you want to check that one out. If price is no object, an application like Maltego can do a lot of OSINT gathering for you. This application will gather OSINT from several different data sources, merge it all into a graph, and allow you to see the interrelationship between the data. It's really an incredible tool. The last two on the list are scripting languages and machine learning or AI. Creating Bash or Python scripts to automate the process could help speed up an OSINT investigation. Again, I suggested you to check out the Bash and penetration testing talk. A lot of things in there that relate to that. AI is becoming more accessible outside of academia. And as this becomes more prevalent, I would anticipate we will see this used to help augment OSINT investigations. Now that we've discussed some of the tools, it's important to distinguish that gathering OSINT against an individual versus an organization is just going to be a little bit different. Targeting an individual will typically include more basic tactics and tools, while organizations tend to be more complicated. So utilizing more tools and more techniques will have to be used in order to be successful. This, of course, is a generalization, but I think you get the point. While putting this talk together, I struggled with how I could demonstrate how OSINT could be used in an attack. The problem is I cannot show the tools adequately enough in this venue. And then, there's issues around displaying, potentially someone's personal information. So what I ultimately decided to do was create a couple fictitious targets. In this first scenario, we have John Doe, who is an individual. And in the second one, I created Fake Corp, who represents an organization. I created these scenarios I felt were realistic attacks. These are scenarios that I feel are representative of plausible attacks given the tools we've discussed. I made a deliberate decision to center these attacks around OSINT to keep it relevant to this talk. By no means would this be the only way to attack the targets, but it works in this context. In this scenario, we have John Doe. John represents a regular person that you probably know in real life. He's not technically savvy, nor is he security-minded. He shares personal information actively on several social media platforms. He tends to share way too much information. His social media accounts are not restricted in any way. In other words, whatever he shares is publicly available to anyone who wants to look him up. Even though John is not security-minded, he thinks his passwords are secure. He uses his own method of generating what he thinks are secure passwords, which also allow him to remember them fairly easily. Okay, so for example, his Facebook password is Facebook Social Network 1, all run together. The first part of his password includes the main part of the website address, Facebook. He basically will drop off the www and the .com. He'll then turn around and add social network to the password. This denotes what type of site that it is, followed by the number 1. In this way, he thinks that he's coming up with the perfect unique password for all his accounts with no password reuse. For his banking password, it'd be something like Wells Fargo Banking 1. Wells Fargo being the main URL, banking being the type of site that it is, followed by number 1. He does this for all of his sites. So, we can start to see the pattern that John likes to use. On this particular day, a hacker obtains a massive credential dump that contains usernames and passwords for thousands of people across hundreds of different sites. This dump includes several accounts that John owns. Quickly, the hacker starts parsing out this list, and John becomes one of a few targets. They can quickly see that John has a method for creating passwords. The hacker notes this and plans to use it to gain access to his accounts and starts OSINT data collecting. The hacker gathers close acquaintances like friends and family, along with where John works. This is easy because it's available on his social media sites. Since he doesn't lock down his social media accounts, it's easy to learn a lot about John. He's disclosed his dog's name. He has completely filled out his social media profile. And he even participates in quizzes, which ask things like, John, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite musical group, dream car, your hometown, and so on. If you get any of these quizzes or questions via social media from your friends or acquaintances, I highly recommend that you don't fill these out. Oops, go back. John did not share his birth date, so a quick search for any municipal court records. By the way, his hometown is known through his social media. This reveals he has a few speeding tickets. A little work has to be done because there are several people that match his name, but with all the data they already have, it's pretty easy to narrow down his age based upon the pictures on his social media sites. Having obtained lots of personal details on John, the hacker believes that they have enough data to launch their attack. The attacker will pick a time of day where John will most likely be sleeping. Recall that the attacker would have access to this information by looking up John's local time zone. They know what city he lives in. Just do a Google search to figure that out. They would also be able to approximate John's active hours, maybe by monitoring his social network usage. Since most websites require you to use an email address as a username, it's easy for that hacker to know John's email provider. Being able to figure out John's password, the attacker takes over his email account. Usually, gaining access to someone's email account is bad enough and is usually game over at this point, given that it's such a treasure trove of personal information. But in our scenario, and to kind of keep things going, let's explore the idea that John does not use his email for much of anything. But basically, it's there to receive communications from sites and services that he uses. He mostly uses social media messengers and text messaging for communicating with friends and family. Even with that, the attacker can still exploit their current position within John's email box. The attacker goes about resetting all his passwords, email account first. This disconnects John from all his accounts. Remember that John's email has been compromised, so performing these resets are just going to send a password reset link to his email address, which the attacker can then turn around and click the link and change, the password to whatever they want. Another piece of information that they were able to find was where he banks. The hacker found basic banking communications that were archived within his email account. Hacker then decides to see if they can gain access to this account to steal money from his bank. The password pattern that John uses allowed the hacker to get past the username and password part, but the hacker cannot gain access to John's banking account without providing answers to a series of security questions. The attackers were able to answer, what's the name of your pet? They got that through his social media posts where he told everyone what his dog's name was. The second question, what was your high school mascot? That took a little bit more time, but they were able to see on social media where he graduated from, and then use a search engine to, find the school and then ultimately figure out what the mascot was. The last question, what is your mother's maiden name? Proved to be more challenging. Some people still think that this is a very secure question. They might think this is hard information to find. The hacker sets about looking at websites that cater to genealogy or other ancestry research. Since the attacker already knows John's hometown, they know his relatives through social media, his age through the government record search, it's easy to find information about John's parents, including John's mother's maiden name, through the genealogy site. This site serves as a confirmation that their target is correct. With this information, the hacker sets about gaining access to the banking account and performing an electronic funds transfer. The same scenario could be true for an online retailer that John uses. Gain access to the online shopping account and then use his stored credit card, which he has in his account. The attacker could then buy virtual gift cards. Since the hacker has access to all his accounts, they could impersonate John and attempt to use that in other ways. Maybe use his social media to ask John's friends and family for money, or anything is possible here. John's day has gotten really bad, and he's not even woken up yet. Once he is aware, he's going to have a difficult time assessing exactly what is going on. His mobile phone service could be shut down, which could be bad if that's his only phone. In this scenario, it could be difficult, and he'll spend so much time trying to regain access to his phone, get back into social media, get back into his email accounts. The thief is going to be long gone and moved on to another target before John truly understands all the damage that was done. Of course, this is a made-up scenario, and any number of things could thwart this attacker. For example, the bank could see that the attacker's login is at some weird time or from a location that would not be expected and stop it, or the wire transfer might have to come under some kind of additional scrutiny, which would create delays or not allowed to be processed, But the point in this scenario is to show how open source intelligence could have been used in an account takeover. This is just to get your imaginations working. In summary, because of the credential breach disclosure, the hacker was able to identify John as an ideal target. Since John is active on social media, additional information would be available and useful in the attack. Searching a local government website revealed a birth date. And lastly, using a genealogy service, this helped in answering a security question that his bank asked for. In this next scenario, let's look at Fake Corp and show how OSINT might be used to target an organization. Fake Corp is a market leader in their field, and the hackers in this scenario only have the name of the organization and nothing more. The goal of these hackers is to plant their ransomware for a large payout. When the hackers start their OSINT activities, they start with the company's website and collect information relating to their products, services, and employees. The company displays their partnerships along with the new product launches through their main website. They also have an area where they advertise job postings. They also use other job sites like Glassdoor as well. Hackers quickly document everything they find. They see many IT and sales positions the company's looking to fill. In those job postings, there's detailed information about technology that the company uses, along with specific version numbers. Additionally, they were able to determine technology used to interconnect the different offices. Other information was found on an IT support forum. An IT admin for Fake Corp was asking for assistance on a technical issue they were experiencing. This information revealed additional context around how some fake corp technology is used. The hackers use domain lookups and DNS resource records to map out fake corp's external exposure. Along with that, they see an administrative contact for the web domain. The attackers quickly move on to deep web searches. Fake corp is accidentally exposing sensitive information that the hackers were able to find with their deep web searches. This information includes sales forecasts, sales individuals, things like marketing research information, and other sensitive internal memorandums, which were never meant to be shared outside the organization. In this hypothetical scenario, the website administrator thought he could keep this information hidden with the robots.txt file. The hackers use this as a data roadmap, which directs them to other sensitive information stored in a website virtual directory. The Internet Archive Wayback Machine is also used to gather historical information from previous versions of the site. Through posts on their website and by doing traditional searches, these hackers learn that there's an upcoming release for a fake corp product. The company spent a considerable amount of money and time to promote this on several social platforms. Hackers start to understand some of the departmental structure which exists within the organization. They have information on products and on VIP employees from the fake corp website. Deep web searches have revealed and filled knowledge gaps relating to other parts of the business. Professional networking sites disclosed other individuals that could potentially be targeted. Lastly, the press releases have shown that there is a new product, again, that's being launched in a few weeks. While they may not fully understand how the business operates, there is enough information to understand it at a high level. Since our hypothetical attackers find several IT and sales job postings, they infer that the company may be in a difficult transition. And this might be because, I don't know, several employees are unsatisfied and quit, or maybe the company's growing quickly and they need to fill those positions. No matter the cause, the hackers will try and use this inference to their advantage. They also recognize that the organization is probably busy trying to meet the deadlines relating to the new product launch, so several other teams could be busy as well. This is a perfect situation to take advantage of. So the attackers decide that there's too much at stake to attempt a malicious email campaign against the target. They opt instead to use social engineering to impersonate a new sales representative. You know, on the surface, this is not a bad idea. There are several positions open in that department. There's a new product launch, so it's conceivable that there would be, some new sales associates being hired. All that is left is to find a target to exploit. In all of the different press releases, contact information is pulled for Fake Corp's head of marketing. The attackers create a malicious document which will be used to drop their payload. They use sales templates gathered from deep web searches to make this look legitimate. The hackers call the marketing person and pretend to be a new salesperson. They introduce themselves and drop a name for an actual sales manager that they claim to report to. Again, this is learned from social networking sites and also the deep web searches. There was information found there. This gives some amount of believability to their story. The fake salesperson pretends to be frustrated and explains that they are having trouble with their new email. The imposter explains that IT hasn't been very responsive. Again, this could be plausible given that IT may be short-staffed or because they're a new employee. Sometimes new accounts don't always get provisioned correctly. I mean, how many of us have experienced issues like that before? When you come on board to a company and you're new and things just aren't working correctly. Whatever the case in our scenario, the hackers are trying to play off of people's willingness to help others as well. This imposter explains that they are supposed to work on this new quote for a customer. It should have been done yesterday. They claim the challenges with IT are holding them back. Our hacker / fake salesperson convinces this marketing person to give them their personal email, which will be used to send a malicious file over to the user. This way, the two can work around the issues and won't be held up any longer. Basically, they're going to have a side channel communication that's outside of Fake Corp's internal protections. The attacker sends over the malicious file to the marketing person's personal email account for review. While on the call, the file is launched. Since the file looks legitimate, there's no immediate suspicion that this is bad or anything else is going on. Gratitude is given and the call ends. Eventually this malicious payload will spread silently before launching the encryption routine. Numerous volumes of data are encrypted and ultimately held for ransom. Just like in our previous fake scenario, any number of things could have stopped the attackers. For the sake of this discussion, it's important to understand that attackers will use OSINT to determine ways into secure environments. They interpret or infer certain conditions exist. In addition to social engineering attacks, there would be enough information to attack specific underlying technology, which the company uses as well. Remember the information our attackers found through job listings and support forums? Hackers are smart and they'll learn your terminology also and use that to their advantage. Organizations are really in a tough predicament. How can you conduct business and not share information about yourself? Which brings me to, what can you do? Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but once information is published, it may not be possible to remove. I mean, it's likely to be accessible indefinitely. With things like the Internet Archive Project, this can exist forever. But I do have a few suggestions that I'd like to share, which might be helpful. Number one, remove information from online sources that you either own or manage. Only allow people that to see your social media posts. For organizations, try to be as vague as possible in your job postings. Is it necessary to post specific software versions which run core systems? Probably not. Number two, if you do not manage or control the online resource, request that the website take down your personal information. Websites like Intellius and Been Verified will give you an option to remove all your personal information. Number three, if your personal information was released maliciously or doxed, then notify the appropriate authorities. Number four, especially important for organizations, implement controls to minimize the effectiveness of OSINT. Maybe use something like an acceptable use policy to mandate that employees cannot use personal email to conduct official business, or on the technology side of things, maybe the IT team should filter or block access, to those personal email sites. That's an option as well, if you can do it. Same with employees sharing information on social media. You may want to create a policy that instructs users on, what's acceptable to publish. This doesn't necessarily stop it, but having a policy creates some formal understanding of what's acceptable. And again, that's under the idea that they're publishing something about the organization. Sometimes there's a whole freedom of speech component as well, but pertaining to organizations, that's something that they can create a policy over. Number five, educate people about the risks. Tell your friends and family about what was discussed today. Help them understand why this is important. Social media is a great tool to stay connected with others, but it comes with risks. Explain that security questions used to secure logins are, another way a hacker can get in. Either use questions that are not easily found or, make up fake answers to those questions. I recognize that, making up fake answers can be difficult to remember, but I do know people that do this. Number six, learn the tools and understand techniques as an ethical hacker. Take classes, read books, or find free videos on YouTube. All these can help you learn more. And number seven, lastly, perform OSINT checks on yourself. And if it's, within your job responsibility, perform them against your organization as well. It's important to know what's available to the public. How can you fix or defend against this if you don't know what's out there? And lastly, remember the most important part, use your imaginations as to how this data could be used against a target. In this last slide, I wanted to put together a few links that might help you learn more. The first one, the OSINT framework, is a great resource to help step through an OSINT investigation. It will link directly to tools that you can use. Gray Campus, Geek Flare, and Security Trails have links to popular tools. You know, they've ranked some of their favorite tools, so check out their analysis. For those of you who are interested in using an OSINT-specific Linux distribution, I recommend looking at TraceLab's OSINT VM. It comes preloaded with several tools that could be useful for OSINT investigations. From a learning perspective, I listed a few of my favorite talks. By far the best, in my opinion anyway, is April C. Wright's Open Source Intelligence 101. This was a talk she gave at Wild West Hackin' Fest back in 2018. She goes way deeper than I was able to go, and she is really excellent at what she does. David Mashburn's OSINT, Not Just Offensive talk is another good one to watch. He gives a defensive or a blue team take on OSINT intelligence gathering. Michael Bizzelli's Open Source Intelligence Techniques is a great book, which is full of useful information. Hack the Box, you know, has some OSINT challenges, which could help you learn more about OSINT. There's some specific OSINT challenges there that help you learn the tools and how to perform OSINT investigations. So in conclusion, I want to thank all of you for joining my talk today. I also want to thank the EC Council for giving me this platform to share my knowledge. I hope you found this information helpful. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer any that you may have.